Now, the Pepsi Sports Desk with Joe Whelan.
It has been 1 decade, 2 presidents, and 3 head coaches since Tennessee last beat the Tide. 10 straight wins for Alabama by an average margin of 23 points, and in the process, the once famed third Saturday in October has become just that weekend between the second and fourth week of the month. Following the loss of Sean Deion Hamilton, there was some expectation that Alabama would lose a little something at linebacker with Keith Holcomb and Dylan Moses filling in, and that absolutely proved to be the case Saturday night in Starkville. Colin Sexton will make his much anticipated debut in less than an hour. No incoming Alabama freshman has generated this kind of buzz since Gerald Wallace way back in 2000. Alabama might be the better football team. Alabama might be the #1 team when it's all said and done, but tomorrow night, I'm going Georgia.
Joe, why will Auburn's offense be able to score against a top 5 defense like Georgia?
Well, I think it's 3 things. First, the offensive line has gotten a lot better. I know that Luke is going to throw hey, Clemson had 11 sacks on the Tigers earlier in the season, and I'll give you that. That was an awful performance for the Auburn offensive line, but they finally found a rotation that seems to work. Those guys are playing much better football. We're counting down the Tide tip-off at the top of the hour alongside Alabama assistant Antoine Petway right now. This place is going to be packed in just a little bit. I got to ask you, because you've been involved with this program for over a decade in one way, shape, or form. When's the last time you remember this much buzz going into a season? We certainly heard Nick Saban say in the lead up to this game that Jimbo Fisher's offense has stayed pretty consistent throughout the years. He praised it, said when executed, it's a very effective offense, but is that in some ways a sign of a failure by Jimbo Fisher tonight? So riddle me this. What do 2 SEC championship game appearances in your first 2 seasons as a head coach get you? Apparently fired. We as a nation are good at a lot of things. But right now, and I don't care what side of the debate you're on, we are not good at civil discourse at all. With that said, inside of locker rooms with team sports, that seems to be an environment where civil discourse does very, very well. Nick Saban spoke to why that might be the case. It's been said plenty of times this season, but it bears repeating. What Bill Clark and UAB are doing this fall defies logic. The Blazers, back from the dead, unbeaten at home, and a win away from bowl eligibility entering the day, might be the best story in college football this season. I don't think there's any doubt that the mood around Tuscaloosa has improved significantly since Saturday night, and that's thanks to a better-than-expected injury report from Nick Saban on Monday afternoon. Minkah Fitzpatrick will miss just 1 practice before returning to the field on Tuesday. Mack Wilson, who underwent foot surgery over the weekend, according to Saban, could be back within 4 to 6 weeks. But moving forward, Alabama will begin life without one of its senior leaders in Sean Deion Hamilton. I think a lot of Alabama fans would admit they're spoiled. 4 national titles in the last 8 seasons, arguably the greatest coach of all time, but it is the embarrassment of riches on the roster that takes the cake.
Now, the ABC 3340 Sports Desk with Joe Whelan.
Well, Auburn and Georgia have been playing football against one another since 1892. 125 years, 121 meetings, and I don't know if any outcome has ever been as unexpected as what we got today at Jordan-Hare. The folks out west gave Georgia a 2.5-point edge. The folks in SEC country said Gus Malzahn might be playing for his job. For much of the first half, Auburn was playing footsie. Tigers jumped out to a 9-7 lead on 3 early field goals from Daniel Carlson. Meantime, the defense did its part, kept Jake Fromm on edge most of the day. 4 sacks, 5 tackles for loss. Jeff Holland was a manimal. He had one of each, including this suplex of Nick Chubb. Late in the half now, Jarrett Stidham out of the shotgun goes deep to Darius Slayton. Good ball, good catch, 42-yard touchdown. Tigers led it 16-7 at the half. Third quarter, this is where it all goes wrong for Georgia. Muffed punts. Auburn would recover the football, and moments later, Stidham fakes the handoff and keeps. 3rd rushing touchdown of the season. It's 23-7 at that point. The defense forces another quick Georgia punt before Stidham dumps to Ryan Davis, and he's going to find a seam. 32 yards. That touch would seal the deal. Auburn's largest win over Georgia since 1954, and the Tigers' first over a top 2 team since 2013. 40-17 was your final. A masterful performance on all sides of the ball. 3 touchdown passes from Stidham, 233 total yards from Kerryon Johnson. To put that in perspective, Georgia finished with 230. 6th SEC game of the season. The Tigers have scored at least 40 points. Here's Stu McCann on a big day at Jordan-Hare.
I'm Stu McCann, ABC 3340 Sports.
Yeah, Stu's right. They are contenders. Not only that, this sets up potentially the most consequential Iron Bowl since 2013. But first,
Alabama had to get past number 16 Mississippi State. The Tide's defense has been decimated by injuries. 4 linebackers that were on the week 1 2-deep depth chart are out. And if you were wondering if even the Tide eventually hits an injury wall, the answer is yes. Starkville was lit tonight. Dan Mullen in search of his first W ever against Nick Saban. Teams traded punches throughout the first half. Eris Williams gets State on the board with an 11-yard run on the Bulldogs' second possession. But how about this answer from the Tide? Jalen Hurts goes over the middle to Calvin Ridley, and Ridley's going for a run. 2 cuts, and it's a 63-yard pickup. That would set up a Hurts score, and we were tied at 7. State answers again, engineers another long drive, 11 plays, 73 yards, capped by another Williams touchdown. Teams traded scores on 4 straight possessions, so it was 14-all at the half. Third quarter, this is where Tide fans start to get worried. 17-14, Nick Fitzgerald just muscles his way in. First time in the Saban era, Alabama gives up 3 rushing touchdowns in a game. State would tack on a field goal, so Bama found itself in a 24-17 hole in the fourth with less than 10 to play when Damian Harris does this. All this guy does is come up with one big run after another, takes it to the paint, extra point ties things up. We're still tied, 2 minutes to play. Andy Pappanastos from 40 in the lead. College kickers, man, they never disappoint. So Mississippi State gets the ball back. Bama's defense so beat up, forces a quick 3 and out. Tide gets it back, and after Jalen Hurts hits Calvin Ridley for a huge gain, the freshman Devontae Smith caps it off. 26 yards. Fitzgerald would sail his Hail Mary try. That's it, and that's all. I mean, what do you say about this one other than wow? Nick Saban said last week his team hadn't faced hard. Well, here you go, 31-24. The defense got the stop it needed when it needed it the most and left just enough time for Jalen Hurts to do what he does best, which tonight was find Calvin Ridley. 5 catches, 173 yards for the junior. Jeff Spiegel on a wild night in Starkville.
340 Sports.
Jeff Spiegel burning the midnight oil on his birthday. Happy birthday, Spiegs. Rest of the day in the SEC. Arkansas visiting LSU, and what a day for DJ Chark. 4 catches, 130 yards, and on the opening play, the 4th, one of his 2 long touchdowns. Darius Geist rushed for 3 more scores as the Tigers win 33-10. South Carolina and Florida, and the wheels are officially off for the Gators wagon. This was an ugly football game. 7 total turnovers, but Mo Denson a couple of scores. Gamecocks win it 28-20. Hey, don't touch that dial. Plenty more on the way, including a 4-peat for Jacksonville State. That's pretty good. Plus, UAB is bowl eligible, but they are far from done. Everything's bigger in Texas, even the Blazers. More sports next.